Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just start the meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the August 19th, 2026 meeting of the Crime Prevention and Control Commission to order. The time is 3:05. Thank you all for joining us. We will begin with roll call. Zoe, can you please do roll call?
Erin Atencio, Chair.
Here.
Mimi Sherman, Co-Chair.
Here.
Chief Ron Thomas. Sheriff Elias Diggins. Judge Carrie Lombardi. Miko Brown or Marley Bordowski. Colette Tuet or Leanne.
Here.
Karen McGowan will be joining us later. Carrie Heck. Yesenia Guzman.
Here.
Hello. Blake Renner.
Here.
John Walsh.
Here.
Hello. Judge Lori Clark. Dr. Jennifer Gafford.
Here.
Deanne Witzke. Kara Napolitano.
Here.
Orlando Salazar. Anthony Pfaff.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez Gutierrez. Councilmember Cashman. Matthew Kirsch. Jonathan McMillan.
Here. Here.
Hello. Greg
Here.
Morrow.
Here.
Vito Bess. Thank you. We have 11 members present.
Thank you, Zoe. Next order of business are the action items. The first action item is the CPCC reset presentation, which I will be conducting. Let me just share my screen. Please let me know if you can see the presentation.
You're good.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. This presentation provides an overview of the Crime Prevention and Control Commission's proposed estimated 2027 funding plan and outlines our approach for developing the 2028 strategic proposed funding plan. My goal is to walk you through the commission reset, our priorities, and the next 6-month plan that will guide our work moving forward. This is today's agenda, and we will be going through a summary, objectives, key actions, overview of goals, proposed funding areas, 6-month strategic plan for months 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and then closing for next steps. The summary. As a quick summary, the proposed estimated funding for 2027 allocation currently stands at $800,000 with the potential for additional resources. Now, this estimate will not be finalized until after September 15th. Today's presentation explains how we plan to reset the commission, clarify our goals, funding priorities, and implementing a structured 6-month strategic plan. Our next major milestone will be developing the 2028 funding and a proposal with a strong commitment to equity, evidence-based decision-making, and a community partnership. Resetting the commission, our objectives. To begin this reset process, we are focusing on 6 core objectives that align with the ordinance and bylaws and also respond to our 2025 audit findings. First, reestablishing mission and operational framework. Second, responding to audit findings. Third, aligning our direction with current community safety challenges in Denver. Fourth, improving transparency, accountability, and measurable outcomes. Fifth, strengthening partnerships across city departments, justice system, and community organizations. And finally, modernizing how we fund programs and evaluate their impact. Key expectations. To advance the objectives, we recommend the following steps. Review prior commission activities, bylaws, membership structure, and funding outcomes to identify effective practices in areas requiring updates. Assessment of historical activities. Assess gaps in representation and opportunities to strengthen community engagement. Establish updated working groups focused on prevention, intervention, reentry, and evaluation. Incorporate stakeholder input through the process to guide new priorities in the Commission's revised structure. Commission goals and the overview. The Commission remains committed to enhancing safety and well-being across Denver. As discussed during the January retreat, we identified strategic opportunities for CPCC funding. Priority areas include strengthening prevention initiatives for youth and adults, advancing reentry supports and alternatives to incarceration, improving cross-agency coordination, and establishing sustainable frameworks that produce measurable, impactful results. These are the funding areas for 2027-2028 ideas. Recommended funding priorities in the remainder of 2027 and into 2028. Based on CPCC previous discussions and looking back at previous analysis reports from 2019, 2021, and 2022. Here are some program ideas and previous examples of programs introduced by CPCC. First, community-based violence prevention programs, such as transition residential treatment beds or TRT beds. Transition from jail to community collaboration, TJCC. Second, youth development and diversion initiatives. And this is a new area of exploration that we would definitely start taking a look at. Third, behavioral health and crisis response partnerships, such as sobriety court and the co-responders. Fourth, reentry services to reduce recidivism, outreach court, pretrial supervision, and sheriff's work program. These recommendations align with identified community needs and support an evidence-based approach to improving public safety outcomes. Our strategic plan, months 1 through 3. In the first 3 months of our 6-month plan, we will conduct an internal review of the Commission structure and performance. This includes evaluating bylaws, membership, and historical outcomes. We will also develop a stakeholder engagement plan, propose funding allocations for 2027, and include also performance indicators. Six-month plan, months 4 through 6. In months 4 through 6, we will evaluate the stakeholder feedback gathered in the early phase and refine the proposed 2027 estimated budget allocations based on what we learn. We will identify final data needs for reporting, Begin drafting the 2028 proposal and conduct internal reviews before submitting the proposal for commission approval and inclusion in the mayor's budget process. Months 1 through 6, this will all be done by the assistance of the chair, co-chair, program manager, and the Department of Public Safety leadership, with the subcommittee's assistance and the overall input of the commission, holding everyone accountable for the strategic planning and the execution of goals. Closing and next steps. To close, the commission will begin discussing and prioritizing the types of programs we intend to fund moving forward. We will finalize the data we want collected to support evaluation efforts. I will continue outreach with commission members and recommend our subcommittee meetings. We will also begin the timeline for submitting the proposed fiscal year 2028 estimated budget allocations. Throughout this process, our commitment remains centered on collaboration, community, safety, and transparency. That's the end of the presentation. And the next order of business is discussion on the proposed reset. And that discussion will be led by the chair, Erin Atencio.
Thank you for that. Before we jump in, I just am curious to hear some people's initial thoughts on what was addressed today and things that were missing or opportunities for us to lean in. And maybe that will just take us into the conversation. But I do want to start with an overall vibe check on this.
I'll jump in. So overall, I think it's a really solid plan. I think it addresses a lot of our opportunities. It discusses exactly what it is we want to do and why we're doing it, such as addressing audit findings, but also saying, okay, we've had a lot of change in the city and county of Denver from, city supported services, aid center closing, things like that. What gaps do we want to plug and what is our purpose and priority? And then linking that to measurable outcomes. So I know, it's high level. We're going to get detailed, but it referenced the strategic group meeting that we all had to talk about our overall goals at the retreat. And so I think it's a great start. And I think it'll be great to, as we move on, link that to what each of the committees is doing and how they're overall aligning with the overall reset. So I'm very much in favor.
Awesome. What other reactions do people have?
I'll just hop in to agree. And express some appreciation for the write-up and the thinking that went into this, which I think setting a new course is really important. And we have such a stellar group of people from all sorts of different walks and perspectives on this group, and having a sort of renewed sense of direction helps a lot. So also in support.
Awesome. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And I'll sort of continue the theme of I think it's a good plan to reset and address a lot of those topics. The one item that I might have missed but didn't see on there that I think was really critical in commission success in early years was the committee that was referred to as the Justice Coordinating Council or Commission. So I just want to keep plugging that because I think it really provided a framework for a tremendous amount of work in the first 10 to 15 years of the commission. So I'm not sure how that fits into the plan, but would really like to see that be thoughtfully, maybe re-engaged or reconstituted. I think it's still in the bylaws. So that was my only feedback, but support the strategic reset for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're still kind of like combing through the bylaws to figure out what it is that we have to do and what are things that we should do. And one of the questions we had was if everyone had to participate in a subgroup, what that would look like. our understanding currently is that people don't have to do it, but that we would encourage them to. Greg, you've been on here since the beginning. Does that sound right?
I want to say yes. I think, and there were
Okay.
definitely points in time that there was required commissioner participation in each of the subcommittees. I don't remember if that was throughout the entire commission's history or that was a period of time, but I think it's incredibly valuable.
Okay. I mean, I think we do too. The way that we had talked about this earlier on this year, a couple weeks ago, I guess, is having these different subgroups that some of them are going to hopefully look similar to when this was created, having a financial group, a data group, a programming or justice coordinating commission, where then we would come back up to this group and be able to report out on what everyone's doing. I think a little bit of that was already happening, but by setting some really measurable action steps for everyone, hopefully that can help us recalibrate and have more accountability so that when we are having these meetings, we have something to continue to push and not just continue to talk about. And so combining the audit findings with what we're hoping the structure might look like, it's kind of where we're at. We're still pretty new to the planning, which is why we wanted to have the conversation today. But if you have any of those old documents, Greg, if you could send them to me. I have been digging through my inbox to find all the stuff from Reggie Herder from years ago to see what is still relevant, what we could use so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Awesome. All right.
I think there was another thing there that we're combing through to get really clear on is commission members attending meetings, just these meetings in general, and how many they can miss before there has to be a conversation of, do you continue on the commission if you're unwilling to make the commitment to continue to join the meetings on a consistent basis. So we're looking through what all those are and trying to be more consistent about how we apply the expectations.
Yes, thank you for adding that in, Mimi. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get to the slide that I've been looking for. So it kind of feels a little bit like a chicken and the egg situation right now. Or did anyone else, sorry, before I jump in, have anything that they wanted to respond to? Or was that awkward silence enough for everyone? Okay. So I feel like we're a little bit in a chicken and the egg of what are the priorities we want to focus on that will help get us to our funding, that will help establish the subgroups. And so the place I think that we should start is if we can go to slide 8 for the funding areas. Oh, I'm sorry, slide 7. Can you put that up, Claudia, for everyone to see? I don't want to talk about this to look at if this is the right place we should fund. I'm hoping we can have some conversation around, are these the priorities that we collectively agree is where we want to be focusing our attention? Because as we're going to start building these out, this will help build out the strategy, which then will inform the funding. And so I think these are new. Sorry, can you go to the slide before, Claudia? So I want to take a minute and talk about some of these have already been funded and some of them are new. There is only a few. And so I want to spend some time on each of the bullet points, really digging into, is this right? Are we missing the mark? How are we missing the mark? Because my hope is by the next meeting we will have more of a framework to bring back. And so I think this is a critical component. Is anyone from the budget committee? Mimi, is that you? Is this current, the community-based beds? Is that something we're currently funding right now?
I believe this is from the courts that came and presented, right? I'm looking at Claudia. The residential beds, right? Isn't this what Molly
Apologies.
came
No,
to promote?
this one is actually a program that we had previously. I don't have the exact year when this was established through CPCC, but the one that's currently that we do have is the transition from jail to community collaboration. It would be under behavioral health, which would be bullet point number 3. For the wellness program
Yes,
that we
that's what I'm
just
thinking of.
approved.
I thought there were beds attached to it. That's why I got confused.
There's beds through the coalition, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, which are, I
Right.
believe, are 5 beds.
Okay, so what these are basically lists of things we have done in the past.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Is there anyone on the committee that can speak to how number one was working? And is this something we want to continue to lean into? Was this like, I guess Greg.
Sorry, because we have nobody else, I'll serve as somewhat of a mostly accurate historian.
The historian?
Um, the TRT beds were funded, I believe, as part of one of the wellness core, and it had several different titlings of the program. There were beds over at Denver Cares, I think 5 of them that the commission paid for. My recollection is it was difficult to keep them filled, and we ended up committing quite a bit of money for unused beds, which is strange because we know the needs there. So that's my recollection on that. And then obviously the TJCC is the jail reentry program that's currently funded by the commission.
Is that ran through jail teams or through who oversees that part of it?
Yeah, so it's I think the funding is some partial funding goes to the sheriff's department for some in custody work, and then a significant chunk is awarded to the Second Chance Center, who does the community-based reentry work. And that's been one of the legacy programs that we have discussed for the better part of a year and a half now.
And
Dr.
this is the
Gafford?
one we voted to move the funding to the program permanently. Is that correct? Is this one of those?
Yes, it was one of the 2, and maybe Shanae, if she's on, she can chime in. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but I believe there was a recommendation to move that one to safety.
Yes, and I think we all voted yes to that one. So just wanted to clarify.
Sorry, Dr. Gafford, I see your hand. I have one quick question. If this is already funded and was moved, can we take this off of this list? Yeah, maybe.
I can chime in there, Aaron. It has not formally been moved yet. The request was made for the 2027 budget to reallocate that to general fund now and move those legacy programs out of CPCC. But we won't know the approval of that until the mayor publishes or announces the 27 budget process next month.
Okay. All right, Dr. Gafford, for real this time.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna reiterate what Greg said. Those TRT beds, we never could keep them filled, and that those have gone away a long time ago. And I guess part of my question is, I mean, haven't we already made, based on like with what Shanae is saying, we've already made these recommendations for 27. So are we? I'm not sure what we're doing right now. Like, are we figuring out what we want to do for 28 or?
So I think that is part of what we're trying. So we are not able to find much historical documentation around from the audit finding, for example, like what the structures are, what the policies and procedures are. And I think some of it has just been lost. I'm sure it exists somewhere. And so what we're trying to do right now is we have pillars that have been outlined in CPCC. We're trying to build out what the strategy will be. But I think there's still such a big disconnect between what has happened, where are we going, that my hope is that by going through these 5 recommendations, we can suss that out and be done and say, okay, this was already decided. This still needs to be decided. And now we can go into what we think the pillars of funding for the various groups could be. My fear is if we're not able to get this stuff under control right now, I don't know how we're going to build a strategy moving forward. If others have a different idea, I am super open to it. I just feel like we're so lost in the weeds right now that I'm just trying to figure out what is happening and what we need to put our focus on versus what we can actually just say, that's already done, that's off our list, and we have other things we need to figure out.
Okay.
Do other people, it also might be me, I'm still new to the commission. Okay. maybe we can skip through some of them. For the youth development, have there been conversations about this, and is this something new to the commission?
I feel like the last I heard, and I'm newer, so there may be some historical things, but I think this is one of the areas of the retreat that folks were talking about we have not really explored, that we maybe could, if that was something the commission wanted to focus on.
We did have a juvenile subcommittee for a good while. And Greg can back me up on this, but I don't know whether that just kind of went away. So we also had a behavioral health subcommittee. And those were not necessarily, I don't believe either of those are in the bylaws, but we did break those off from the commission, or not break them off, but broke into some of those smaller groups. And there was a pretty significant attention to issues around juvenile justice.
Did anything come out of it? Like anything that was funded or programs you wanted to RFP? Like what was the output, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
I mean, Greg might remember because he was co-chair with what's her name? Sean, from juvenile probation. It's just not my area, so I wasn't really super focused on juveniles.
So Dr. Gafford's correct in terms of both those committees existed. I'm trying to recall the juvenile subcommittee and if any projects or initiatives came out of it. And I can't think of one off the top of my head. Jonathan might remember too. I think he might have been involved back in and out during those days. But honestly,
Barely.
I would say that 90% of the initiatives, historical initiatives in the commission, with the exception of transition from jail to community, came out of the JCC.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like there's some work here that we can continue on with.
Yeah, and I just say that I think this particular area is so important for obvious reasons right now. Very, very strong supporter for exploring the area and seeing what could be done.
Absolutely. I think this is definitely going to be something that I would encourage us to talk about and prioritize. Okay, can we go to the next slide, Claudia? For 3, does the behavioral health subgroups, I'm hearing it does not exist anymore, but that it was really effective when it did. Is that accurate?
I mean, yes, it also, that one was probably the one that garnered a little more. I mean, you and I were on that together, garnered a little more community involvement. So we got a lot more community voices, and that we were then able to take back to the CPCC. So yeah, as far as sobriety court, we're I think we are still funding, but co-responders we're not. Right.
Right. Yeah. Is that because it started here in CPCC, but then it rolled off to Caring for Denver? Okay.
Yeah, and now it's been handed off right to, I don't have the history on that, but it's been handed off to WellPower, and then now it's going to go back in-house. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the behavioral health and crisis, I do think we should create that subcommittee. It sounds like, because sobriety court, I think, is the wellness court that we also said was going to be a legacy moving. No, I see 2 different answers.
It is wellness court, but I don't know that I thought we were still funding.
I see a hand, but I can't see whose.
Hi, I'm Jessie.
Hi, Jessie.
I'm with Denver County Court. Sobriety Court and Wellness are 2 separate programs. The Sobriety Court is a legacy court that supports multiple DUI offenders. It is separate from Wellness, and I don't believe it is receiving any CPCC funding at this point.
Okay.
Oh, I was confusing sobriety court with recovery court.
Yeah. So yes, sobriety court is fully independent from Wellness, and it's multiple DUI. It's the population that it supervises. It's a highly successful program, but it's not tied to any CPCC funding.
Shanae, I saw you come off or come on camera.
Yes, I was just gonna answer that exact same question that Jessie just answered. So she got it.
Okay. What are areas here that we would want to focus on so that we can start brainstorming that as well?
Aaron, so a thought here, especially because of the opening, talking about linkage to data and things like that. I almost wonder, and there's an element of analysis paralysis, but I do wonder, if we could look at data that suggests what the opportunities in the community are that we're trying to fill. I think this group is, my understanding, there to be innovative and look at, okay, what's an opportunity in the community that the data suggest, and then try to fill that gap, whatever that gap may be, before sort of committing on one. Because to the point, I thought the transitional beds at Denver Cares was a good example of, a place we invested, but the beds weren't being occupied. And so I think maybe that approach would help us prevent a recurrence of something like that, where we're investing somewhere that maybe could be invested more effectively elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's great. Mimi?
To kind of piggyback back off of that a little bit, I'm wondering if, given we have such little funding to get us through this year, in this next year, I'm wondering if we can use some of those funds to potentially hire someone to do more of an environmental scan for us to really understand what is out there rather than maybe us trying to figure out where all those data sources are. Maybe we hire someone to do it for us. I'm just trying to think about the limitations we may have in doing that on our own versus getting someone's help. But just a thought, because I'm newer to this space as well.
Another thought too, is I think a lot of service providers are very, attuned to these opportunities in the community. And so we can analyze and then decide what we want to target. The other opportunity could be to cast a broader net and say, hey, if you want funding, we're not guaranteeing anyone a grant, but if you touch on these very high level points that the CPCC is focused on, but with a lot of opportunity for maybe sort of more niche submissions that are still valuable, that then this group can decide from what's submitted and requested, what we might want to fund. And we could put a very, rigid, defined structure around, hey, and by the way, you have to show us that the need is actually there in the community with the data. And so to Mimi's point, I think it's important to have someone do it for us. I think we could do the environmental scan. I think there's a lot of value to having that in-house. Depending on the resourcing and what we want to do this year, we could potentially also hand that off to, prospective grant applicants, and see what they come up with. So it's another possibility, I think.
Okay. I am sorry, I'm taking notes, and I also had other notes, so I'm trying to toggle between them. I'm curious too, the DOAC, the Denver Opiate Abatement Council, just paid someone to do an analysis of treatment in Denver. And so I'm curious to, maybe I'll send that out to this group just to review. It's definitely not the same, but I do think it might dovetail nicely with the justice impacted group that we're focused on. So I wrote down some notes about that. I think it's a good idea. Re-entry, is this still, are these new ideas or had they been funded before?
Funded before.
They did.
Before.
Okay. Are any of them still going? I know Outreach Court is.
Yeah, so for example, the commission funded the first two pretrial officers to do some enhanced supervision back in '06. And
Okay.
kind of the commission carried the funding with some expansions for multiple years and finally lifted off in 2017. And then we sort of recreated the same issue that we're having now, right? Because that's been a historical challenge, is to lift off innovation and innovative programs into the general fund or a different funding stream. And so the commission owned them for a long, long time.
Okay. All right. And then is there a fifth one, Claudia?
No, there's not.
Or sorry, another page. Okay, perfect. Okay. I don't know if that was helpful for anyone. I think it was helpful to get kind of a baseline. Like I said, we're, I think, trying to put together, I've been trying to figure out where we're at, what we've done, get some historical context. How can we move forward? What are the buckets that we need to be focused on? And so I might have done it backwards, but I also think that I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on the mission and vision of where we should be going. I know this was originally created to do overcrowding in the jail, and really work with people that were impacted by the justice system. And I believe it was to divert into care. But I'm curious, like, if we could have a conversation around that, and does that still resonate? I know that this is also, I know that it's changed, and so I just want to get kind of a temperature check on that. Does anyone have any documents around what the mission, vision, and was prior to this?
I think not this last retreat, but maybe the year before, I think we rewrote it.
Does anyone have it? I cannot find it anywhere.
I can look. Leanne might have it.
I can look through files and send you things like the last request for proposals.
Yeah.
And Anthony and Jonathan were also on the budget and RFP subcommittee back then. And then Dr. Gafford, I know the retreat you're referring to, and I thought the bylaws were updated at some point to reflect that.
Well, we updated the bylaws. Jonathan and Colette and Jeff and I updated the bylaws, I don't know, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago,
Okay.
maybe? Not many years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can look and see what I've got, and I'll send it to you.
Okay. That would be super great. What I am, so people kind of know where this is going. I had put together some documents around where I could find information after talking to some people, what I believe to be true. The reason, like I said, I started with are the funding priorities right, is that I think there wasn't a lot of clarity on that. But then also, what do we want the core focus to be for the strategic plan moving forward, understanding that with the audit, we have to go through and address that on what are our priorities, what is our strategy, what is our mission and vision, and how are we going to be collecting that data. Part of that is, I think, getting really clear about what that looks like, which I'm happy, like I said, I've started a document and I'm happy to send that out to people for a response, but wanted to have this conversation first and not make too many assumptions about what I think this group did without having you all kind of give me that feedback as well. Also proposing maybe some different subgroups. Sounds like there was some energy around potentially bringing on new ones. But I'm also curious just around, like, I know this probably feels repetitive, and so I want to acknowledge that. And I'm also curious, like, what am I missing and how can we move this forward so it's feeling a little bit more productive? Because these are long meetings, and so I want to make sure we're maximizing it as we start with this new process.
Aaron, I would be happy to defer to any suggestions you got on how best to do that. it's difficult for me, just from a scheduling point of view, to attend meetings of this length at this frequency. And people from my office could probably help on particular issues as they arise, but I do think we need to be, focused on coming up with a workflow that works, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate that.
And I think the idea of reforming said committees, right, whether they were previous existing or new ones, is important. I think that's where the heavy lifting of work gets done. And then this commission just weighs in and provides feedback. I think that's been the struggle that I've been feeling, is trying to get things done with 33 members. We don't go anywhere, right? You really need smaller working groups to push ideas forward.
I agree. Okay. So what I can commit to doing, because I also don't want to drag this out longer than it needs to be, is between the notes I took today and between kind of the brain dump I have done, I have what I will propose as a mission and vision, what I will propose as some of the strategic buckets, some of which we talked about, and kind of maybe polish that up so it's a little bit more organized, as well as potential subgroups and what the intended outcome was, and send it to that group. Does that feel like an appropriate next step? And I will do that with Claudia, Mimi, Esther.
I also have one quick question from the retreat. It was a little unclear as to what our funding actually is and will be. And so that might help us drive also, like, if we probably shouldn't be talking about projects to fund if we have no funding.
Yeah.
And that our funding goes with the project. So the legacy projects, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the money, that if we give it to county courts or whoever, that they also get the money and we don't get that money again. And so I just wanted to be clear about do we have a budget, and that may help us drive also. Oops.
So can I speak to that just a little bit? So we do have a budget and it's fairly small right now.
Okay.
The conversation we all have to talk about, though, is where do we want the commission to go? What work do we want it to do? And what money will it take for us to do it? Because then when we decide what that is, we can request of the mayor's office to add to the budget. So it's a matter of us figuring out what it is and then us asking for the funding to support it. If we don't get the funding, then we don't get to go that route. So we can have some contingency plans. But the whole point is, like, yes, our funding will be minimized if the mayor agrees to move these programs over to the legacy programs. And Shanae, you're on. So I think if they all move, it's like 800,000 or something is what we have left to work with until we come up with a plan to then make another request for the 2028 budget to provide us additional funds if that's what we're requesting. And I think it really is up to us to sit down and say, what is it that we want to be doing next year? I feel like I'm feeling still very like, I don't know, what do we do? And if we have these committees, what are they going to work on? Like, I feel like we as a commission need to really get some solid thoughts about what direction we want to go and how do we get there. And then when these committees come back into play, maybe they're different ones, maybe they're the same as they were in the past, and they have things to work towards and then come back to the commission and report out. I'm feeling the disconnect of the what it is we're going to be focusing on.
And so now we're back on budget cycle. Is that correct? Like, we're going to be asking for specific things rather than having this bucket of money that as things come up. That was my understanding from the retreat, that we're kind of back to that. Is that?
So right now for this 2027 budget, we're asking that the legacy programs be transitioned to the agencies back to the general fund. And so if that goes through, that's great. If it doesn't, then the money stays with us and we have to decide, do we want to continue to fund the legacy programs, is what I understand. Shanae, please jump in at any point if I am wrong. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And if those programs do move, then we have this kind of rolling funding that we still have, the 800,000. If we spend some of it, then it's gone. But then if we want additional monies for additional things we identify, we can make the ask. Whether or not it's approved or not, that just depends. So I think that's right. And Shanae, seriously, tell me if I'm wrong.
You are 100,000% correct. So awesome job, Mimi.
All right, Erin, was that the end of the discussion?
I think so.
Okay,
I will type this up and make some recommendations. Like I've said, I've done a lot of thinking on it and certainly did not want to speak to the group as the newest member, or speak for the group. I wanted to ask before, but I will get that sent out and hopefully we can get the ball rolling on what it is that we're doing and our mission so that we can start doing the work.
perfect. So the next
Thank you.
item is speaking on that survey that I sent out to the commissioners. I did get only 6 responses in terms of, what you all wanted to work on. First was reentry. The second was behavioral health. Third was youth. And fourth was violence prevention. And fifth was community engagement. So I just wanted to let you guys know what those results were for that survey that was sent out. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I guess my question to the commission is, do y'all want an opportunity to fill it out? Because 6 of us clearly is not at least the 21, 22 that were on this call, nor the 30 some that are on this commission. Do you all want an opportunity to respond?
Yeah, I apologize that I haven't filled it out. If that could get recirculated, I'll take a look at it and consult with people there and try to turn that around quickly. Thanks for
Okay.
the suggestion.
I can definitely send that out again. All right, moving on to public comment. We will now open the floor for any public comment. If you wish to speak, please use your raise hand feature in Zoom and you will be called. All right, seeing that there are no public comments, we will move on. If there is no further business, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn. This is Mimi.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Perfect. A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. The CPCC meeting is adjourned at 3:52. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.